How much power can a thought have? Can the idea of evil manifest as an entity? What connection does a Ouija board have to a specific demon? Today we test the believability of the demon Zozo.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
Today we are discussing...
Are you going to bleep it out this time?
No.
Okay, we're going all out there.
I say it too many times in my notes to bleep it out.
That would be a lot of bleeps. So for those of you that might not know, this is the second time we're discussing this, but this will be in detail. Last time it was a listener submission, the Ouija board demon, which... In future Charlie, you can edit out what I'm saying right now. But if you feel so inclined, maybe you want to play just like 30 seconds of when we got terrified out of our minds during that episode right here. We will be touching a little bit on...
Whoa.
Dude, it must have been a ghost.
Dude, she literally said I would recommend not saying that name. But
Let's not.
I will bleep it, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I was going to tell you to bleep it, but then your stomach just went, I'm a demon. Herbaderbader.
Is Cooper up here?
No, dude, don't be fucking doing that shit. For real.
I'm serious. I was just asking.
No,
I don't want him to pop up. I don't want him to pop up.
Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. Don't be fucking doing that. Because he's not. This door's been shut.
Okay, alright, cool.
Oh
cool,
my
cool, cool.
God. Put this in, I don't even know. We need like a scared bloopers. Holy Oh my God. But this is terrifying, right?
Obviously. You know why we're getting so sidetracked right now? Is because we're scared.
Are you gonna keep the cat thing in or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it.
Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to justify. I was normally that wouldn't freak me out, but this stuff is like...
Yeah, no, I just...
So, there's only been probably like 5 or 6 episodes that we've... Whether it's the topic or something happens while recording that we've been legitimately terrified. That was like the first one. That's one of the most memorable ones.
It's scary because, things can manifest in different ways. And I legitimately thought I saw a cat there for a second.
Yeah, that was a very scary episode.
Yeah. We've also mentioned Zozo when we talked about the possession of Roland Doe.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's supposedly the main culprit. Not to get too far into it, but...
Yeah, I don't mean to... demean it in any way, but it really makes you want to say the clown after its name.
Why?
Zozo the clown.
Is that a thing?
Bozo the clown.
Oh boy.
The jester. So
I think today is something that I feel is truly evil.
Okay.
Although, I do have to question, there is a question, the hypothesis of this episode is, do you think that this thing is truly a demon?
What else would it be?
We'll get into that. Okay, our sources today are Thought Catalog, All That's Interesting, and Reddit. So there's not a whole lot to this pre-experience discussion. We're basically going to talk about what Zozo is. It is supposedly a demon known by people who use Ouija boards.
The Ouija board demon.
Yes. Not many demons are known for multiple possessions and cases of terrorization. But Zozo is different because people can name that one. It's an infamous demon. The demon is known for several incidences to cause harm, especially known for the Darren Evans event. It's also known way back in the 1800s with 2 girls that were terrorized by this entity. And it's even known from the movie The Exorcist, which the demon takes possession of the girl. And it's inspired by the supposedly true events of Roland Doe, where he is possessed after playing with the Ouija board.
Mm-hmm.
And the demon was even the culprit behind one of our scariest experiences, the listener.
Yeah, not our experience.
The Ouija board demon.
Yeah, not ours, but thank goodness.
That was a very scary episode. Can you give like a slight recap of that?
Yeah,
quickly.
So, well, perhaps. She was playing with the Ouija board and she went to, it was her, I remember her friend was called Stone, right?
Mm-hmm, the guy was.
And she was at his house. and it got really scary. They started seeing things. And then when she was driving, she said the radio station changed from like static to like this demonic sounding, like almost like a ritualistic mass.
Well, it went from like a church thing, right? Or became a church thing.
The radio instantly switched on its own. It felt religious to them, but instead of God, it spoke of evil. It shifted.
Yeah.
And then when she got home to her house, or her friend's house, I think, and they were spending the night, they saw like a huge shadow figure. That kind of scared them away.
Didn't even follow them to school the next day, too?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
This is like 2 years ago.
It's a while ago.
I think the reason that this one might stand out so much is by playing the Ouija board, you kind of have to have those introductions. You know, like you get the name. Like if you're just seeing a shadow figure, or not that I'm putting shadow figures as demonic, but like under other circumstances, you might not capture the name of whatever you're dealing with.
Right.
When you're using a Ouija board, that's one of the formalities. Like, who are we talking to? Z-O-Z-O. So I wonder if that could be part of the reason why.
It rarely presents itself as itself to begin with. We'll see as we go through it. But
in her instance, I know that's what it did.
It's true. The record of this demon goes back roughly 200 years ago, where the spelling is challenged or changed from Zoso to Zozo. Now, if this is actually the same entity, it can be traced back even farther, because this thing is known to go by different names. Another name is, weirdly enough, Mama, which I think is to lead into that sense of security.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if this is a demon, this goes all the way back.
Yeah. But that's part of the argument against this thing, is that it doesn't have the deepest roots, which is in like, I don't want to say Bible lore, but like in like religious backgrounds, it doesn't have those like deep roots as like Beelzebub.
Well, they didn't have Ouija boards then. He had to wait for Hasbro to come around.
I thought it was Parker Brothers.
The Parker Brothers demon.
Milton
Bradley.
That's just capitalism.
There was a player for the Cleveland Indians at the time named Milton Bradley when I was younger. Threw me off. I'm like, this dude makes a lot of games while playing a game.
His name was Milton Bradley?
His name is Milton Bradley. Batted, I think, left-handed.
That's weird. Weirdo. So like I said, this thing doesn't quite often present itself as evil as first. It tries to lure you in, keep you calm, make it feel like it's safe. And then when it's got you in this like state of like, oh, you're just talking to a little girl, it turns its answers into ways of terrifying you. Like it subverts expectations. It makes you scared. And that's what it does. And then when you are finally scared, that's the big reveal. That's the funny part. He goes, ha, 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 ha. Another thing is that it'll move the planchette. Actually, I've got a whole list of rules to not do with the Ouija board. The only reason I included it is because number 10 is specifically about this demon. But this is from Ouija board facts. The list goes like this. Number 1, never insult the spirit. 2, never play alone. When you're alone, you are able to be possessed more easily. 3, never use the board if you are sick, drunk, depressed, because you're in a weakened state and more vulnerable. Number 4, do not force anyone to use the Ouija board against their will. Number 5, never use the Ouija board in a cemetery or any location where a murder or unnatural death has occurred. Interesting.
I feel like that could be anywhere at this point in time.
I do too. Number 6, never trust a spirit. Evil spirits will use lies and false flattery. Your hair looks so nice. You smell so good.
Okay, I'll tell you my name. You can come on in.
Number 7, do not ask questions about God, which I find very interesting, actually. Number 8, do not ask when you are going to die. Number 9, do not give your name. Use nicknames, because names are power. And number 10, if you encounter a spirit called Zozo, stop playing. Many people have had bad experiences with this evil spirit. It goes by other names too. Mama, Zaza, Zosa, Oz, Zo, and Za, and Pazozu.
I'm surprised there's nothing about asking about a dead relative.
I'm not done.
I thought
There's
it was
more
10.
rules.
I thought it was 10.
Number 10 was the one I wanted to highlight.
Oh,
There's a couple more rules. If the planchette moves to the 4 corners of the board, it means you've connected with an evil spirit. Number 12, if the planchette keeps moving in a figure 8 or the infinity symbol, it means the spirit is trying to gain control of the board. Number 13, if the planchette begins to count down through the letters and the alphabet and the numbers, it means the spirit is trying to escape from the board. Never let the planchette fall or fly off the board. It can allow the evil spirit to escape, which I don't follow the logic on that, but that's fine. 15, do not leave the planchette on the board when you're not using it. 16, when you're finished, the board must be closed and you must say goodbye. 17, do not burn the board. 18, properly dispose the Ouija board with holy water and break it into 7 pieces and bury it. 19, just like your phones, don't become addicted.
Did you put that or did they put that?
I put that. 20, if the Ouija board starts to freak you out, stop using it. And 21, if you're religious at all, do not use the board.
Oh.
Yeah. End of list.
If you're religious at all, don't use the board.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was there one about family members?
No, I thought there was when I said that.
I know, you were like, I'm not done. Wait. Like that, it'll come. And then,
yeah.
That's okay.
No, yeah, it doesn't say to be cautious against that. So, the idea, could Zozo be something else? Could it be just an evil spirit? Do you think it has to be a demon? Do you think it could be a lot of people thinking about something because they saw it in a movie or read about it in a book? Could it just be impressions? I want you to think about that when we go through the encounters.
One thing interesting about the Ouija board that I always was kind of like thinking about, why would it matter with the Ouija board? Like it is mass produced as like a toy,
yeah,
so to speak. Like what power does it have? And not that it's based on facts because it's a fictional film, but I think Talk to Me, that movie kind of gives it an interesting idea that, you know, it's not like it's not like when a Ouija board is built, it's assigned something, but maybe when someone and I think we've talked about this before too. The Ouija board might not even be it. It's more so the intention of what you're doing, what you're using it for.
Yeah,
like it's a vessel, and it's like just the idea like these things are walking in darkness, and once someone begins that initiation, the light, like there's a light, and it catches their eye. And in the film, spoilers, kind of. You know, that's where like you grab the hand and it's like them seeing a signal of like, oh, what is this? And they grab the hand. That's how they communicate. So obviously that's a film and we're talking about real life here, but I wonder if that could in a way, it kind of makes it make more sense in my brain if it is real. That is like just something calling out that they kind of respond to rather than like...
It's a signal. It's a portal.
Or
it's
like
a way to enter.
Or even like this demon just like hanging around waiting for somebody to play.
Yeah. Okay. With that, let's get into our encounters. So this first encounter is the Darren Evans story. This is one of the more famous tales of the demon. The girls that I mentioned, they're more kind of setting the basis for historical encounters. There's not really a good story about them, just that it was back then.
It's just kind of an acknowledged thing like this happened.
Yeah, exactly.
It was before Reddit, so there's no way to
right, there's no way to record anything then.
No.
So Darren Evans, he went on a website called True Ghost Tales, and he recorded his experience. This is somewhat written like someone wrote a bad review in Yelp about Zozo, but that's just...
1 star, wouldn't do again.
Would not summon again?
Yeah, would not summon again.
Quote, my name is Darren, and I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm currently 40 years old and have a fascination with the occult since an early age. I've had many bizarre experiences with the Ouija board, and I'm writing this as a warning to people that bad things can happen if you open these portals. During my experience with the Ouija board, one particular spirit always seemed compelled to make its presence known. Its name is Zozo. Today, I refuse to even pronounce its name, as I believe the mere pronunciation of it can cause it to manifest. Good thing we said it like 12 times. Too many times to count. It at first pretended to be a nice spirit, or pretended to be whomever I was trying to contact. But eventually, it showed its true self, cursing me, threatening me, and other presents in the room. Once it actually cursed me, using what looked like a Latin or Hebrew, and using biblical terminology. I was genuinely fascinated and startled by how many times Zozo showed up, even in many different states and many different Ouija boards. It always wound up being very nasty and commented freely about how it wanted to possess my girlfriends and take them to paradise. When asked where paradise was, it spelled Hell. One time I woke up in my bathroom only to see my 1-year-old daughter about to drown. Her mother left her alone in the tub for, quote, just a second, and somehow the water got turned on and was overflowing. Instinctively, she had her face tilted up and was seconds from going under when I grabbed her from the water. The next day, she was hospitalized for some weird internal infection and was put on in isolation for 14 days straight as the doctors tried to diagnose her illness. We almost lost her, and that's when I began to suspect the demonic attack. At the same time, my girlfriend maintained a trance-like state. Her personality changed from a very sweet person to withdrawn and uncaring. The demon had said before that it was going to possess her and eat her soul. I was recording music for a future rock project, and I remember jokingly asking it if it had an opinion on what I should name the band. It spelled out on the Ouija board, Iron Tongue, which at the time I thought was pretty cool. Only later, when my daughter's tongue swelled up in the hospital to the point of asphyxiation, I realized it wasn't cool at all.
That's so dumb to keep messing with this thing.
Oh,
what should I name my band? Are you kidding me? Your
stop.
Child almost drowned.
This guy does not stop. Her tongue became rock hard and distorted her face, swelling to where it was hugely grotesque in her mouth. We took turns beside her in the hospital for what seemed like forever, until she began to recover from the strange affliction. When guests would spend nights in our house, they would claim that they heard frightening voices coming inside our walls. Objects would be thrown across the room, and spiders seemed to come from nowhere. My girlfriend's brother, who lived with us, complained that he couldn't sleep at night because the conversations were so loud that he simply could not rest. He believed in ghosts, and though he wasn't afraid of them, he said they definitely felt demonic. Lights would come off and on by themselves, and doors would be unlocked and opened by themselves. One night in our bedroom, a vicious laughter emitted from thin air, and to this day, I cannot explain the terror that this laughter gave me. One night, I was awakened by what felt like hands on my throat choking me. I could not breathe. I could not scream. After about 30 seconds, it released its grip, and I gasped for air. The same thing happened to my girlfriend the next night, and another night, me and her brother were standing just outside the back porch by the sliding glass door where we were talking about a supposed curse in their family. And I exclaimed, I rebuke this curse in the name of Jesus Christ. As soon as I finished saying those exact words, a deafening sound of vibration struck the entire house with such an alarming boom that the neighbors came over to ask if I had heard something strange. I knew it wasn't our imagination. Things settled down after that. And to this day, I believe that whatever made this noise also caused a disturbance to go away for a while. My girlfriend broke up with me, and I met someone new online in Michigan, where I moved up to be with her. She didn't believe in spirits, and though I knew better, I decided to make her believe as well. Living in a very small town in Marshall, Michigan, there were no stores that sold Ouija boards, so I downloaded one from the internet. I printed it out. To my horror, Zozo returned. It said I came from cyberspace, and when I asked it where it lived, it spelled skull necklace. We didn't think much of that until I asked it again where it was, and this time it spelled mirror. That was the one mirror in my bedroom, where we were crouched on the floor, and I heard a scream coming from her 7-year-old niece who was watching us with another young friend. We looked up at the mirror, and we saw the skull necklace swaying back and forth with glowing eyes looking down at us. My new girlfriend's son had hung the necklace on one of the posts of the waterbed hours before I downloaded the paper board. We almost jumped out of our skins, and although 3 feet of fresh snow had fallen that night, we all found ourselves in the front yard, not knowing what to do, scared and frozen in terror. My girlfriend was so fascinated, she drove 40 miles to purchase a new glow-in-the-dark Ouija board, much to my dismay. The next night, we had another session in the same room, and he immediately came forth, and without even me being a participant. My girlfriend's nieces were using the planchette, and I would secretly write down a color on a small piece of paper, then crumble it up where no one could see. I asked the young girls to ask the board if it knew which color I had written down. It quickly scooted to yes, blue. I remember chills coursing down my spine as I threw the wad paper at my girlfriend. Her eyes widened as she read the written color, blue. And then we tried some shapes and words every time the board knew. One night, we asked the board if the spirit would show itself. It spelled yes and told me to turn on the lights and take a picture of the necklace above the board. I did just that, and what turned out is eerie, to say the least. On the upper left-hand corner of the picture, you can see plainly winged skeletons flying about. Toward the middle, you can make out a hideous face. I have seen at least 4 evil faces in this picture. I took this picture 6 years ago. People have stolen it at this point and put it all over paranormal websites claiming they took it, when I know it was me. I have sent this picture to several experts, and they say they cannot explain what the image is inside, as if it wasn't strange enough. Now here comes the really scary part. A few months ago, I Googled the word Zozo. To my shock, many other people also have been contacted by a demon of the same name. I read about 20 similar stories. I am now convinced that this simply cannot be more than a coincidence. Supposedly, he is an ancient demon, and his name stands for the Destroyer. I am currently researching this phenomenon for a future book. I am on the initial stages of presenting my findings to a reputable demonologist. So heed my warning. If you're playing around with an Ouija board and you are jokingly asking it to name itself and it spells Zozo, close the session, cleanse the house, and never, never ask it again. End quote.
I hate this guy. I literally cannot stand this guy. You can't pretend to be ignorant for that long. You can't see that your child almost drowns, and then you mess with it, and then your child gets this condition with their tongue where it's, terrible, and then apparently that's the end of that child, even though it's his child. We don't hear about it ever again. Goes and meets a new girlfriend, and instead of letting someone else win the argument for the better of their well-being, he has to challenge, like, his ego doesn't let him put it down. So even after everything he's done, which didn't affect him, it affected those around him, he decides to play it again with nieces in the room. And then after all this, he's like, oh, I just looked it up, and I guess I found out that it's this demon thing. And then at the end to be like heed my warning. Like, dude, no.
You've gone too far.
I'm not even going into whether or not I find it believable or not. I'm just saying this guy is an idiot.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a dummy.
What are your thoughts?
On that story?
Yeah.
That guy's a dumbass. I think it's stupid. I think, why would you... It's not like chicken, right? You know it's going to attack you. It's not a standoff.
By the second time, by Michigan.
Yeah.
Like everything, even, okay, when he asked for the band name, it already felt like, why are you teasing this thing?
Right.
Like, let it go.
It's obviously got nothing good intended for you.
But by Michigan, when you saw what it did to your child, if you believe that, if you believe there's that connection there. Maybe there's not, but he's writing it as if there is.
But also that second girlfriend, too. She drove 40 miles to buy another board after they're already terrorized.
Well, I think the fact she's dating him says a lot about her. So I understand that. But sorry to be super critical. It's just like...
No, I think that's fair to be critical. I think that is the stupidest thing.
I don't mind people messing around with Ouija boards. And a lot of listener submissions or stories we hear where people, I went to a graveyard, I was being silly. And it's like that one friend you have that is like, woe is me, but keeps making the same mistake over and over and over and over again. It's like by the third time, it's like, I don't have sympathy for you. And it's not just him.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, the first time he got hurt, and the second time this happened, and then the third time this happened. It's like, it's affecting people around him.
Bro, you gotta pause it.
All right, Charlie, you just had me pause.
I did.
Tell me what
I thought I heard a giggle. I am hoping it doesn't show up in the recording.
And normally it's me hearing something and you don't hear it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's interesting.
This has been an eventful night so far already. So you were saying this guy's an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go into it further. That's one story. I just don't feel like he's doing it to himself.
It's a long one, but I felt it like showcase what this thing can do.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder he keeps coming back to him. He's like, wow, this guy...
this guy's stupid, huh? But yeah, so let's move on to a very special presentation. So we're going to hear a couple TikToks from Vanity, this girl named Jewel.
And you hit her up. I saw the email.
I did. I want to make sure she was okay with us using this because it's a scary story. She tells it very well. So I wanted to, just give it from the horse's mouth.
How long, just for people to kind of...
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, let's listen.
I hope it's not nighttime wherever you are, because this story is why I no longer touch Ouija boards. Mistakes were made. Quick disclaimer.
Maybe more like 5 minutes.
This happened about 7 or 8 years ago when I was a dumb 17-year-old, so some of the details are a little bit fuzzy, but the important parts are floating around in there. It was a dark and stormy evening. Just kidding, it was like the middle of the day in the suburbs, and 2 of my friends asked me to come over to one of their homes because one of them had a Ouija board, but every time she used it, only one thing would come through. And that thing called itself Mama. So I was the weird, creepy friend of the group who was into tarot and supernatural ghosts and ghouls and all of that, so they invited me over so that I could try to use the board and maybe give them my input on what I thought was going on and who this Mama was. So knowing almost nothing but thinking I knew everything because I was 17, I went over to their house and we used the Ouija board. I will say, we followed all the rules and we took it very seriously. We never treated it like a joke, but I was less protected than I would like to be nowadays. So I began the session by stating we were ready and willing to communicate respectfully with any present spirits, and that if they wanted to make their presence known, they could move the planchette to yes. Almost immediately, the planchette, straight to yes. Now, if you've ever used boards before, you know that that's kind of unusual unless one of your friends is messing with you and moving it themselves. It normally takes a while to get going once you put that message out there, kind of like your matches on Tinder. But it shot straight to yes, so I followed up by asking, what is your name? And it spelled M-A-M-A, Mama. Immediately, I got this tingly feeling that was not great, and the air felt kind of heavy and staticky. I don't know if my friends were feeling it, but I was. But they kind of had looks on their faces like they were maybe feeling it, or they were just really creeped out. The way I describe the energy is like if you've ever been around when something really bad happened, like somebody broke a bone or got hit by a car, both of which have happened right in front of me. You know the feeling in the air is like charged electrically with a really icky feeling. It was exactly that feeling. So I start asking more questions. How old are you? How did you get here? Did you live here? Etc. And a lot of the answers I'm getting, I'm feeling kind of bullshit. I can't describe it. It was just a feeling I had. Another thing to note was that when it wasn't actively answering a question, the planchette was moving in figure eights. I then asked if any other spirits were present, and it said yes. I asked how many, and it said either 3 or 4. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember that the answer was yes. So I said, will you let any other spirits communicate? And it immediately jumped to no. I'm sensing whatever this is extremely controlling and overbearing, and it's been lying. At some point, I was feeling a little brave, and I decided to ask, how old are you really? It paused, and the planchette slowly moved to 0. I asked, how old are you really? It paused, and the planchette slowly moved to 0. Even though I was a dumb 17-year-old, I knew that was not good. So it was time to abort mission, close session. Again, because I was stupid. I decided to continue engaging, and I said, will you let us speak to any of the other present entities? And it said, no. I said, okay, well, we're ready to close the session. Would you like to say goodbye? And it said, nope. So as if I was talking to some little kid, I said, well, if you're not going to let us talk to anybody else, we're going to have to say goodbye. And it just went, no, 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 no. So that's when I decided being kind and patient was not working anymore, and I needed to be stern and direct. So I stated, you have no power here. We are controlling the session, and we are ready to say goodbye. So my friend and I began to move the planchette to goodbye. And I don't know if she remembers this as vividly as I do, but I swear it felt like something was magnetically pulling against as we were pushing it towards goodbye. And I knew it was not her moving it because she looked just about as scared shitless as I was. Also, this was not the kind of friend to play pranks like that. So we had to push the planchette over the words goodbye, and we said goodbye. And the feeling kind of went. Once the staticky, icky feeling went away, I looked at my friends and I told them, this is really not good. Even though I was 17 and stupid, I knew enough to know that if something says it is 0 years old, that means it has never existed on this earth. And when it said it was 0, that was the only time I genuinely felt it was answering candidly. Also, it made me kind of want to throw up a little bit. I told my friend I thought that whatever it was really negative, potentially demonic, and that it had essentially tainted this board, that it was spoiled, that nothing else could come through because it had left a stain on this portal, essentially is what they are, and she could never use it without only that entity coming through. And I told her if she wasn't careful and she accidentally permitted it to manifest itself outside of the board, she was inviting it into her home. So my advice was to get rid of it, never use one again, and especially never ever ever take one inside of your home. And that was essentially it. She did what I told her. Years went by. I stopped thinking about it until one day I saw an article titled Zozo the Ouija Demon, also known as Mama.
It's a good story.
Good presentation,
Yeah.
music and everything. And the zero part is very creepy.
Yeah. She talks about occult stuff. She's a good, really great TikToker. It's very vlog style. We should do that video.
It's got those. I mean, it's different when you're watching it. Like, obviously, I wasn't watching it. When you're listening to a tightly edited video, it's a little jarring.
Yeah.
Because it's just so. But I mean, it's the TikTok format. You gotta.
Absolutely.
But I mean, wow,
Great story.
so creepy. It just reaffirms why I have no interest in really playing with a Ouija board.
All right. So I've got several more encounters here. So now I've got a couple more encounters from Reddit, the best place.
The best.
So if you're ready, let's just jump into this. This first encounter goes like this. Quote, I just got back from my friend's house. I hadn't seen him for a while, and we were catching up. I mentioned him that I've been messing around with the Ouija boards several times recently, and he told me he always wanted to try one. So I drew one out, and I set it up, lit the candles, and everything. I started the session, and after a few minutes of asking if there were any spirits that wished to speak to us, we get a yes. I ask it to move to the symbol on the board that identifies with, and it goes to the sun, and then it spells its name, and it starts spelling Z-O, Z-O, Z-O. And I'm kind of curious at this point about what that means, so I ask a few questions about where it came from, whether it was male or female, etc. According to what it told me, it's both male and female, never lived as a human, and was born in hell. My friend thinks all this is funny and starts to ask stupid questions, like, does hell have good healthcare system? The planchette ignores his questions and starts moving in figure eights, and several times attempts to move right off the board. I know that's a bad sign, so I attempt to close the session. I thank Zozo for their time and ask them to please move the planchette to goodbye. It instead zooms straight over to no, and I say, fine, me and my friend will move it to goodbye ourselves. I pull it towards goodbye, but it won't budge. I pull harder, and the whole damn board moves a fraction of an inch. It was like the planchette was glued to the board. I pulled again, and this time slowly it releases and allows me to pull it over to goodbye. There was resistance, like I was pulling it out of molasses. Anyway, that's my story. Nothing crazy, but pretty unsettling. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I would call that crazy.
It's pretty insane, actually.
I compared to, some things you hear on podcasts like this, maybe not the most insane, but I mean, for everybody out there who's never had a Ouija board experience, or and by that I mean played one and didn't get an experience, I think that would freak a lot of people out. That would cause me to never want to play it again.
I know. I agree.
And it also matches up with the TikTok story incredibly well.
It does, which is scary because it just it gives it credence, credibility, right? So I have another story from Reddit. This one is a comment about a thread stating that all encounters on Ouija boards are fake.
Okay.
Which I was like, that's a pretty bold statement. This one goes like this. Quote, I'm going to say that it's impossible to be fake because I have experienced it myself. I used a Ouija in college with a few friends a long time ago. Ever since we had that first session, we would feel a weird presence in our apartment. We'd see things peeking around corners. The building we stayed at was built in the 1880s and used to be a butcher shop for livestock. One night, our roommate wondered if we all wanted to contact spirits on her Ouija board. And we all said, sure, why not? Huge mistake. So all was going well, and we were having fun, laughing and whatnot. My one roommate pulled out a lit cigarette to the board and asked the spirit to smoke it. To our amazement, the board started smoking the cigarette like someone was inhaling it. Super weird, but kind of cool. But then someone asked, who's this we're talking to? And the board started to spell out Z-O-Z-O, Z-O-Z-O, Z-O-Z-O. Not kidding you. And at that time, I didn't know what that was at all until much later, and none of us had ever heard of that spirit before. Anyway, we closed the session, but the vibe in the house was just weird after that. We all started fighting with each other, and one roommate became so enraged with us that she wouldn't even talk to us for months. We'd hear footsteps upstairs when no one was up there, and we'd hear banging and sounds of strange noises and thumping sounds in different areas of the house. Until this day, and this is 17 years later now, I'm still feeling haunted by this demon in some way. This stuff is all too real, and I know what I experienced. not just once, but multiple times. I believe the power of the Ouija board and the spiritual realm communicating with us. End story.
Man, they asked the demon to take a hit.
It did.
That's wild. But I mean, like, there are consequences out there. There are consequences. You play a game one time.
Yeah.
And even if
health class right now.
even if it's just a coincidence, this person is claiming that 17 years later, they're still being haunted to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Which I feel like other people have done more with Zozo and haven't been haunted. So maybe it wasn't that Zozo.
That's one of my questions at the end here is every Zozo the Zozo? That's a good question. We'll come back to that. I've got 2 more stories. My ex played with an Ouija board as a kid in his garage with his neighbor. They were contacted by this demon, Zozo. Being kids, they didn't know how to officially end the session, and they just got scared when the lights started flickering and realized it wasn't either of them messing around with the other. They just put the board away. Years later, I moved into the house with him, and weird stuff started happening. And one day, I was cleaning the garage and found this board sticking out from a rafter on the ceiling of the garage, and pulled it out and showed him and joked about it. He immediately freaked out and asked where I found it because he thought it was locked up in a small storage room by padlock with a lost key in the basement. He wouldn't tell me for a really long time why it bothered him so much until one day I was looking at bad experience stories with the board, hoping to find something that would tell me why he was so scared of it. My phone glitched, literally spelling out Zio, 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 ha 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 ha. And I freaked out, and I showed him while it was still glitching and spelling it out. And that's when he finally told me the story, how weird stuff has happened to him ever since he was a kid and messed with this board. He still doesn't really want to talk about it, and when I told him he should do a session to officially end it years later, he started going into a defensive mode, and he didn't want the weird stuff to go away. He just didn't want to talk about it or bring it up again. I ended up doing a session alone and telling the board that the session that started everything was ending now, and I moved out shortly after that. I'm not sure if it worked or not. End story.
You're not supposed to do it alone.
You're not supposed
You
to
didn't follow the rules.
No.
That's creepy that they didn't want it to end. They just didn't want to talk about it.
That is really weird.
That's somewhere.
That's not.
It's
that's
an oppression. Yeah. That's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's actually the creepiest. The glitch is like a good movie moment.
Yeah.
Like if you watch a movie, that'll be like a scene that sticks in your mind. But that line about like, oh, he didn't want it to end. He just didn't want to talk about it.
Really weird, right?
Scariest part of the whole story.
It's very scary. Why wouldn't you want it to end?
Scariest part of the whole story.
Yeah. All right. This is the last story. Did I invite Zozo to my life? Hi, everyone. This is my first post here. I hope to get some help. A short background in my life. I've always been a relatively normal girl. I've always had friends. I'm just about to finish my higher education. I've never had financial problems. I've never been seriously ill. Things just always went smoothly in my life, more or less. I never believed in the paranormal, but things have happened in the past year that have made me doubt. I'll start from the beginning. About a year ago, me and my boyfriend spent a night alone in a pretty big house. We were sick of just watching movies or TV, so we decided to do something different. The other night, we had been watching a horror movie about an Ouija board, and we'd been talking about that none of us had ever tried one. So since neither of us really believed in the paranormal, we decided to try it just for fun. We were kind of silly about it, making it kind of a romantic thing instead of taking it seriously. We turned off all the lights in the house, and we decided to grab a piece of paper and made our board. I Googled a picture of the board and copied it. My boyfriend turned on some candles, and I did a quick Google on how to do the whole thing. And as I remember it, I clicked on the first link and read that we should take a glass, place it on the board, and with a finger on it, we should make the infinity sign for 10 times and then stop. I think I stopped my research here somewhere. So we did all that, and we were sitting opposite sides of each other and started asking some questions. Nothing happened for 10 to 15 minutes, and as we were holding the fingers on the glass, the mood kind of left us, and my boyfriend started to get silly. The weather outside was pretty bad this night, and the wind made a sound in the house and the walls outside. And at this point, my boyfriend started laughing and saying, "It's probably Zozo. Zozo, is that you?" You remember the name from the movie last night. And I laughed at his efforts to scare me. And I also said something regarding this. I do remember saying the name out loud. At this point, we started talking about doing something else. We just removed our fingers from the glass and started cleaning up. I took the piece of paper, the board, and was folding it because I didn't want the house owners to see it in the trash can because it wasn't our house. But in that last moment, I decided to bring it to our room and put it in our personal trash. Just because I was a bit embarrassed by the whole thing and I wanted to make sure that no one saw it. The evening went on and eventually we went to bed. The next morning, I was cleaning our room a bit and I came across the paper of the board and it was clean and it was open. The folding I made the other day was gone. I asked my boyfriend about it, but he didn't take it seriously. Again, laughing, saying, maybe he wants to talk to you more. I grabbed the paper and looked at it, and the corner where the word yes was, the text was smeared, like it had spilled water on it or something. But I couldn't remember any of us spilling anything on this paper. We had a glass of wine when we were doing this, but no wine had spilled. It looked more like water had spilled on it. We forgot about the whole thing and moved on with our lives. And I didn't think about the whole thing until last month. The thing is that after the session, my life has changed a lot, and only for the worse. I don't want to give a lot of details, but I can give you an overview. My studies that have always been well have started going incredibly bad. I started losing relationships. My relationship to my partner almost broke apart. I got in a very, very bad financial problems. Everything that had always worked out for me just stopped working completely. In addition, more or less, everything that could possibly go wrong for me did go wrong, to the point where people around me have been started asking me where all of this bad luck is coming from. Bad habits I have increased in intensity, and this bad luck I have is insane. Every tiny thing can possibly go wrong just goes wrong. I'm often sick. You have to take my word on this. This past year has been the worst in my life so far. These things happening to me should not be happening. As I now understand it, we did a lot of things wrong that night. A lot. Especially when we said the name out loud. So many times. I also started remembering that the thing about this piece of paper, the board, it was just very, very strange since I so clearly remembered that I folded it to hide the text in the trash and we didn't finish it correctly. We just stopped. I've never been open to these things before, but this bad luck in my life has gone so far that I'm open to anyone telling me the Ouija board session we had has had something to do with it. Worth mentioning is my partner also experienced this to a certain extent. Things have been happening to him, but not as much. It's mostly me. Since I don't have a lot of knowledge about this, I'm turning to you. Could it be something that has attached to me? What can I do? End story.
Do you remember if there were a lot of comments underneath it from people suggesting?
This was a comment.
Oh, this was a comment.
This was a
comment.
comment.
They can comment to a comment.
There weren't too many.
There's just one like, nope, you're screwed.
Kinda, yeah. Yeah. So there are many more stories about this demon, but I think we should talk about it in the discussion. This is where I like to stop the show and thank all those people that have joined the Patreon since last time. We have Michelle, Ashley, Bree. I'm going to do my best with this. Mama Lala.
What?
MMALLAA. Mama Lala. That's not a name.
No, it's not. Well, maybe. Probably not. Probably not.
If it is, I apologize.
Mala?
Mala.
No, Mala, probably.
Mala.
If you get rid of the doubles, it's just MALA.
Okay.
Mala.
Mala. Okay. Mala. Did my best. I want to thank you for joining the Patreon. There's so much stuff going on the Patreon. Tyler, what is one thing you want to highlight from me?
I got exciting news. If you're already in our Patreon, then you already know about this. But our 2024 Not Tier pins have arrived. They are gorgeous. It is a reflection on the Not Deer, which is perfect for our Not Tier. And anyone, anytime, if you are ever a member of the Not Tier, our highest Patreon tier, for any amount of time in 2024. I mean, if you're a member for all 12 months, if you were a member earlier this month, but something happened, you left, or if you join the last week of December of this year, you automatically get this pin. We'll ship it to you as long as we have your shipping address, which should be on Patreon. But it's super exciting. It doesn't feel as exclusive because it's February, but just like last year's,
It's only a year.
It's only a year. It's gone when it's gone.
That post that you posted about it had one of my favorite comments maybe I've ever seen.
What did it say?
It was like they gave like a little scenario to the button.
Oh, where they're talking shit on the Not Tier one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome design. Shout out Jalen. So that is for our top tier. And again, just a reminder, in addition to getting all of our other bonus content, you also get our exclusive t-shirt after 3 months and our exclusive hoodie.
Ooh, the hoodie is cool.
Hoodie, t-shirt, and this pin just by being in the not
hoodie
tier.
is very cool.
3 months for the clothing, but like I said, any amount of time you get the pin.
And something I just want to highlight that is available to our Bizarros and above is the Remembering Bizarre game, which is one of our favorite games.
You always talk about the one we just most recently recorded. It's
I know,
smart,
it's always
though.
in my brain.
No, that's fair.
We just recorded this last night. But it's where Tyler and I get to play co-op against Ben because Ben listens to our old episodes, which stuff we don't even remember. And he quizzes us on the old episodes.
It's fun. So if you know the episodes, you've listened to our episodes, you can play along with us, obviously. Some stuff we remember like the back of our hands, and some stuff we don't even remember saying.
That's true.
Especially the nice open-ended questions.
Like, why would I say that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. It really makes us dig back into our old episodes. So it's good nostalgia. It's a good time.
With that, let's get back into the discussion. Say it. Say it one time.
What do you want me to say?
The name.
I'm good.
Oh, come on. One time. I've said it so many times.
Zozo.
Thank
Mama. Zaza.
you. Zaza is slang for marijuana.
Well, it apparently not afraid to take a hit. So
It's true.
it wasn't, it was a cigarette, but that's just one step. That's just the gateway.
So I got a couple questions. So this was mostly encounter-based, but there's still questions that are meant to be asked here. What do you think of it that this, in theory, is only a couple hundred years old? That's phenomenon.
But we don't know that.
We don't know that. What I've heard, it's what I've seen from a couple articles I've read. This doesn't seem to go back that far.
I don't
in
know.
church history.
I don't know the extent of the Ouija board. Like, I don't know the first ever recorded case of someone using a Ouija board. Like, I don't know the history on that.
There isn't. I know there's an episode we can do on just a Ouija boards.
Right. But like, if the Ouija board existed for like 500 years before there was ever a Zozo experience, then there seems to be a little bit of a conflict in what this could be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not knowledgeable enough about both Ouija boards or like anything history related to Zozo.
Mm-hmm.
So
That is fair.
It's hard for me to have an opinion one way or the other on that.
It gives me pause to believe that maybe that this thing is not that old. Not enough pause to totally discredit it, but it does make me stop and look at it critically. But what do you think about the fact that people talk about this thing? Do you think that people talking about this entity, do you think it gives it more strength?
If it's a demon and you're
Feeding
it, yeah. Like us right now, I think we're okay. Like it's dark in here. We're talking about creepy stuff. We're in horror movie syndrome right now. Like, we just watched a horror movie, and now you don't want your arm to hang over the side of your bed.
Yeah.
That's where our minds are at. Where
That's true.
if we watch Keanu, that Key and Peele movie, which actually was not very good. If we watch that and you go to bed, you have no problem letting every hot limb laying over the bed because you're not thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a state of that where it's front of mind, but we're not conjuring this thing.
No.
I know we've discussed like the fact that in the space that we record in and constantly talk about paranormal things, like what that might do. But just this one instance, like I don't think this episode is going to bring this demonic entity if it exists here. Like we're not conjuring it. We're not asking it. We're not opening it up, offering it in. There's no portal. So for us, I think we're fine. If it is a demon and you are, I mean, the act of playing the Ouija board is an offering, an opening.
Mm-hmm.
If that's true, like if a Ouija board is a portal and Zozo is a demon, then I absolutely believe using the name has some power in it.
I think so too. I think you hit it on the head there. I think when you say its name, you give it power. You let it know that you're thinking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're saying it into existence in some form. There is a lot of ritual in the Ouija board. It's setting it up with intention, especially if you make your own.
Yeah.
Like a couple stories did.
That's why Randonautica was so interesting when it kind of had that brief year of heat, because it was all about the intention of trying to make something happen, to will it to happen.
Speaking of the past, I was just thinking about Pask from that listener's story.
Episode
Who
13.
used Ouija boards like it was nothing.
Like Omegle.
Yes.
Connecting is what she called it. She
Yeah.
connected. They had a good time.
It's terrifying. Next question. Do you think that there is more than one? Do you think this is limited to one entity? Or do you think it's many entities almost wearing the name as like a mask? I don't want to say it anymore.
Well, I mean, there are multiple names.
Yeah.
So there could be multiple Ouija board demons. This is going to make it sound very humanistic, and I don't think like we're talking about a human. But what if it's almost like a role? Like it could be any demon, but they're doing the role of the Ouija board demon.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying.
Like if you go to like a Starbucks and they ask you, like they're taught to ask you how your day is. So no matter who's behind the mic, they're going to behave a certain way based on the role that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anyone. It's like, when you walk into Five Below, they like shout from back of the, welcome to Five Below. It's like, that's just what they're told to do based on the role that they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
I hate saying jobs and careers making it like a role, but you know what I mean? It's
yes.
This demon is doing the role of a Ouija board demon, and maybe that
theater,
is
right?
Zozo.
Like it could be like the main character of in one fucking play.
Hamlet?
Yes, they're playing Hamlet. They're playing that role of Hamlet. Now, many people have played that role, but that's still a role. Yeah,
so maybe it's something like that. And that's me taking something otherworldly and putting it in human terms.
Yeah.
So maybe it's some type of reflection of that. That isn't a perfect match, but it could be. Or maybe it is the same thing, the same entity. I don't know.
I don't know. That's the question. Like, does it split itself up? Like, how often is it used,
So, but it, like, if you think about, like, it's so tough because I only think about things through human lens.
That's all we can. We are humans.
And if, like, one person's being haunted by this entity for 17 years, how are they able to hit up all these other Ouija boards? But that's making it like a human. A human can only be in one place at one time.
Yeah. Well, that was basically, that's what made me think of that question.
Yeah.
It's like, how could it be in multiple places? Could it, though?
The one story where it was like, are there other entities in here? And they're like, yeah, like 3.
Mm-hmm.
The TikTok.
Yeah.
And can they talk? No. What do you think those were spirits in the house? Do you think those were other demons? Let's pretend they were talking to Zozo.
Yeah.
And just so let's pretend that's fact. If it's saying there were other entities in there, do you think it's just like naturally occurring ghosts in that house, or is it something brought with Zozo?
I don't know. I think one theory is scarier than the other. I think that those entities maybe have been called forward, right? Like they were going to talk, and then this thing just like took this board over, like you said. But the idea that maybe these things are just hanging out with him, like they're his posse.
Oh my goodness.
That's terrifying.
Has anyone claimed to see it?
That's one of the things I want to talk about too, is that there are so few possessions outside of like Roland Doe that are known to based off Zozo. I said it again.
Which we have an episode on Roland Doe. So if you're interested in that, just search Roland Doe, Believe in Bizarre, and you'll find it. I have no idea what episode number it is.
But there's so few based on this thing that makes you question, like, how powerful is it really? I feel like I shouldn't actually speak that into existence. Maybe I'm just tempting fate at this point. But you know what I'm saying?
It's tough for me too, because I don't have a religious background.
Yeah.
So like I'm not well read or knowledgeable about either side, good side or the bad side, when it comes to, angels, demons, gods, things like that. Like that's not my thing. Like but it's always been ironic to me that even though I'm not religious, I do find demons
terrifying.
Incredibly terrifying, but just because they're evil. It's not like we go through it a million times. But like I find it terrifying, but I'm not super knowledgeable about it. And maybe as we do this podcast longer and longer my life, I'll learn more. But like I don't know the characteristics of how it can make sense that multiple Ouija boards could be having the same demon, where somebody more knowledgeable will be like, well, it's because of this. And it's like, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah. Sidetrack. One of my favorite possession stories actually involves Jesus.
I love possessions.
I'll tell the story. So he's like walking on the road, right? And he comes across this guy who is like messed up. He's got like bags in his eyes, his like skin's hanging off of him. Jesus says, who are you? What's wrong with you? And in a cacophony of voices, this guy says, we are legion, for we are many. And that's
kind of a popular quote, isn't it?
That's where that comes from, though.
Yeah.
Because he was possessed by many, many demons.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite stories about Jesus.
What happened?
He unpossessed.
He's like,
he's like, get out of here.
You
I'm
guys
Jesus.
are silly.
He thought they were silly.
So what would you do if like 5 years from now, whether it's for the podcast because we would do anything for clicks, or you want to impress your wife, or I don't know.
Yeah.
If you have a girlfriend, she's like, oh, they're not haunted, and you're like, I'll show you. What if you play the Ouija board and you got the Zozo? Like, would you start crying?
I wouldn't cry. I'd be like, I would say,
especially imagine you're playing with someone who doesn't know what that is too, because then like if it was me, maybe in the back of your mind you're like, Tyler's doing it because. Yeah. But if you were playing with someone you just had no idea about the stories,
I would say we have to end the session right now because this is very dangerous.
Ugh,
and that's what I would say.
It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it to play.
I don't know. I think it might be worth it one day.
Okay.
Anyway.
As scared as he is right now, he's like, let's do it.
So where do you go with Zozo? Do you find him A? I was going to do A like the quiz. So our scale ranges from believable, viable, skeptical, unbelievable. Where do you think you fall on the scale?
Are we saying that it's a demon, that it exists,
that it's a demon and it exists?
Oh.
I love this face. Like, why'd you do this to me?
Because it shares characteristics.
It does.
There's stories that have certain characteristics.
Many stories. A lot of things are very similar.
I'll say this. It can't be unbelievable because I would be terrified to try.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a part of my body that's just like, what if?
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't a lot about it, but where are you going to find a lot about it?
It's just going to be experiences.
Yeah, like who's going to write about it? I mean, there is, but also, like, it is a popular, right?
Yeah.
And people who want to write stories that get read. That's the one you write about.
That's true.
And Reddit is a stomping ground of
festering monster
of amateur creative writers.
Yes.
I'm not saying every single thing we heard today, and the TikTok one was,
I think that one's 100% real.
That was Mama.
Yes. Which is known to be another name for it, though.
What does that even mean, though?
I think it's like an alias. I think it's like a way to...
But if there's so much power in the name, why not use the name?
I don't think it was ready to reveal itself at that point.
Ryan Reynolds.
What? Ryan Reynolds?
But why?
Oh. I think it was still playing the game with them. That's why.
I'm somewhere between skeptical and viable. Those are the two I'm battling between.
Skeptical?
And viable.
Yeah.
Those are the two. Do you know your answer?
Yeah.
What do you got?
I go with viable. We believe in possessions. We've gone believable in possessions before. It seems to be powerful. My only qualm with it is the tool that it chooses to use to manifest. But I essentially believe in it.
Essentially being viable.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So if I go viable, that doesn't mean every story we talk today is this thing.
Right.
It just means the fact that even if one of them...
Even if one is true.
Trying to justify because
even
there
if
are red flags in my brain.
And also, I think that TikTok is very true.
Yeah.
I go with... that one's like my leading man. My Hamlet.
I'll join you in viable. I'm excited to eventually do this in director's cut again. I want to listen back and be even more critical. But also, who knows, things we'll talk about later on might, more Ouija board stories, more encounters of this type. We'll see what happens.
Thank you for listening to this episode on the on the Demon Zozo. Hopefully that's the last time I'm saying that today.
What do you want it to be called? Is it the Ouija board? What is the name of the episode?
The Demon Zozo.
The Demon Zozo. You're not attaching Ouija board at all to it?
No, because we have the Ouija board demon already.
Okay. Zozo, the Ouija board demon.
So it was a really good conversation. If you like this episode, please go to Apple and leave a 5-star review, and also some kind words would go a long way. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can go ahead and leave 5 stars and comment on this specific episode.
Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think it could be one entity, multiple entities, if it's believable, if it's not believable. If you don't tell us if you've seen it. Just kidding. Let us know if you've seen it. If you've caught up on the podcast and you want more to listen to and you don't want to keep going backwards, which you could always go backwards a lot. But we do a Patreon, so much bonus content, quizzes, games, segments, stories. We watch horror movies together.
Not Tier hoodie though is so cool.
Not Tier hoodie.
It's clean.
Dedicated to your shirt, the enamel pin. We do Google Hangouts, watch movies, review movies, quizzes, listen back to old episodes. We watch horror movie shorts and talk about them. Tons and tons of bonus content over there on Patreon. So go check out that if you want. But above all, we appreciate you listening to this. Thank you for
Very
listening to the podcast that would never ask a Ouija board to name our band. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.